Hello and welcome. You found the Social Work Podcast. My name's Jonathan Singer, and I'll be your host as we explore all things social work. Today's episode of the Social Work Podcast answers that age-old question. How do I live tweet a conference? Okay, so it's not an old question in 2015. It's actually a hot topic right now. But the question, how do I use technology to spread my message, is old. Which brings me, of course, to Benjamin Franklin. In 1729, a 27-year-old Benjamin Franklin bought the Pennsylvania Gazette. The Gazette was a new and financially struggling newspaper, and Franklin had to figure out how to make some money. So he took a page from the Google business model and decided that he needed to increase circulation so he could sell more ads to generate more revenue. And he had to do something that would make his newspaper stand out from all the other local newspapers, and all newspapers were local. So how did he do it? With pictures. He became the first person to print cartoons and maps in a newspaper. And over the next few decades, these cartoons went from being eye candy to serious political statements. In 1754, after a near-tragic kite-flying incident, Franklin drew and published a political cartoon called Join or Die. You might remember this image from your chapter on the American Revolutionary War. It's a snake cut into 8 parts representing the fragmented colonies. Well, this cartoon didn't just sell newspapers. It became a symbol of colonial freedom during the American Revolutionary War. In 1770, Benjamin Franklin realized that in order for the colonies to unite against England, they had to share information. And so he became the first person to mail newspapers to other colonies. Remember, newspapers were local. And just 5 years later, the colonies went to war, and the rest is history. Literally. So what does Benjamin Franklin have to do with live tweeting conferences? Everything. It's good to remember that what we think is brand new is probably not. A widely cited study from 2013 found that people were 94% more likely to share tweets with pictures than text-only tweets. So they found out that people like pictures. I mean, didn't B. Frank figure this out like 300 years ago? And Benjamin Franklin also found that getting your message out to a broader audience can be the best way to fuel a revolution. In 2012, social media was famously used by Arab Spring activists. Fawaz Rashid tweeted, "We used Facebook to schedule the protests, Twitter to coordinate, and YouTube to tell the world." In the last few years, small groups of tech-savvy academics have realized that in order to make broader changes in the world, they have to take all the potentially life-changing information that's published in journals and shared in conferences and then send it outside of their little colonies. So there, I rest my case. Today's episode unpacks how and why you can use social media to get the message out. In April 2014, I recorded a conversation with members of the social media team that was live tweeting the 2014 American Association of Suicidology Conference. The conversation was recorded at the end of 4 intense days. You'll hear team members talking about the personal and professional benefits of live tweeting, how they handled controversial comments, and what it was like to be part of a historic moment. Oh, and I should say that only one of the team members was an IT professional. Social media teams do not have to have social media professionals, but, of course, if you have the funds, it would certainly help. Now, the first step in getting your message out is knowing what that message is. And academics are great at details, but notoriously bad at sharing their passion.
And a lot of folks who are academicians have been trained to not say why they are in love with this project that they have devoted so much to.
Sometimes it takes an outsider looking in for the first time to see past the conference speak and realize what the message is. And that's what happened at the American Association of Suicidology Conference in 2013.
Tony Wood, co-founder, SPSM, and co-chair of social media team for AS 2014.
Tony's an IT guy. IT is important in suicide prevention. It's the backbone of all those crisis call centers, chat lines, texting services, and that's where Tony came in.
I was invited to talk about the future of crisis chat technology. So I was here to talk about really boring infrastructure IT stuff, about how to run a call center and how you get enough bandwidth to make it work and how you build an IT partnership. So I'm sitting around this conference, and I've been to many tech conferences, and so what I had expected was one thing, and what this was totally something else. So I walk into all these different sessions, and I find that this entire conference is about saving people's lives, and about the information that you need to have to save people's lives. And nobody's saying it. There's nothing on the internet. I Googled the f*** out of it, and there's nothing there. There are people who believe that suicide, if you become suicidal, there's no cure or no treatment, and you are going to die, and there's nothing we can do to help you. And we have experts from all over the world that are saying, oh no, that's not the case at all. And I couldn't believe it. So I made it a personal mission to get this information out of this little box.
But you can't be some random IT guy, even one with a brilliant insight, and get the word out all by yourself. You need someone on the inside who's equally as passionate. And that's where April comes in.
April Foreman. I'm at Doc Foreman, and I am one of the founders of the Suicide Prevention Social Media Chat and a mischief maker.
So that thing April just said, no, not about being a mischief maker, although that's certainly true. About the at Doc Foreman and the chat, well, those are really important to this story. So at Doc Foreman is April's Twitter handle. And the Suicide Prevention and Social Media Chat, aka the SPSM chat, is a weekly Twitter chat sponsored by the American Association of Suicidology. So why Twitter, you might be thinking? Because I'm on Facebook most of the time. Yeah, the social network that most people spend most of their time on is Facebook. And what do you do on Facebook? You post pictures. You like people's pictures. You share a meme. Maybe you change your profile picture to a ribbon or an equal sign or whatever is on the Slacktivist docket for that week. But you probably don't share a bunch of news. And that's where the other social media networks come in. Right now, Reddit is considered the front page of the internet. Tumblr is famous for launching The Dress. But Twitter is the place to share your headline news. And so one of the ways that Tony and April decided to spread the news about suicide prevention was by starting the SPSM Twitter chat. There's a whole bunch about Twitter chats and how to tweet chat and all the conventions, and you can learn more about that at spsmchat.com. The next step was to organize a social media team to live tweet the annual Suicide Prevention Conference. April invited folks she knew from the SPSM chat, like Desiree Stage.
I'm Desiree Stage. I'm a photographer in Brooklyn and the founder of the Live Through This project.
Okay, so Desiree Stage was a guest on the SPSM Twitter chat, and she was so apt with social media. And I said, "You're so cool. I'm doing this thing, and I want you to be in it."
I was just like, yeah, I want to do that. What?
What is that again?
What is happening? We're tweeting? I'm in. Let's go.
So you were already good at it, and you recognized
I
it.
do it. I don't know if I'm good at it.
She's very good at it.
What is she good at?
So she, first of all, she's a good photographer, and she understands design and imaging, and she also has this wonderful message about being a survivor of suicide. And so a lot of what she does is really emotionally compelling, and it's visually compelling. So it makes the content ideal for this exact situation. You know, Desiree will do in a clever, natural way what you almost, unless you pay an extremely expensive media company to do, like build from the ground up a media campaign. Desiree will just on the fly, like any millennial, just do good media.
Cheap millennial labor.
Say that you're young.
What is that? What is that?
Cheap millennial.
That you're a digital native. You're a digital native.
You're just trying to get me
free.
a job? Is that what I heard? You were getting me a job?
I hire Desiree. You won't be sorry.
You won't be
Fun
sorry.
to live through this.
The only problem is you can't work her too hard because I need her to do some stuff.
I know for a lot of people my generation grew up on the computer, grew up on the internet.
This is another member of the social media team.
Quentin Hunt, I'm a family therapist in Las Vegas. Tweeting out ideas and thoughts and then looking up the webpage and tweeting it out so people can find it, or finding a YouTube clip and sharing that and retweeting good things that have been tweeted and favoriting things. Yeah, it just really fits for me.
So for you, tweeting the conference was actually a way of being more engaged and more interested in what was going on.
Absolutely.
Was that true for the rest of you?
In a way, it sort of forced you to pay attention because you knew that you were trying to create content.
I listen closer to things that I would generally tune out because I'm looking for a quote. I'm looking for a drop quote.
Yeah.
But then sometimes if you listen too closely, there were things that irritated you and you can't tweet those.
Which is an interesting thing. I want to get back to that.
I think you can. That I would never say that, Desiree.
Oh,
I didn't.
well, let's go there then. So one of the things about tweeting anything is that there's a filter. And the filter is what it is that you pick up, right? You were just saying that. And then there's this other level, which is we know that we are tweeting out to the public, whoever is following us, whoever might retweet us. We don't know where this is going. Was there any point where you heard something that you thought might be controversial or might not be in line with kind of the messaging of the profession as a whole or the conference that you were like, I'm not going to tweet that because I don't want somebody to take that out of context?
Yes.
Yes. Talk to me.
So much. What was his name this morning? The mass shooter guy.
It was Adam Langford, Dr. Langford, and I couldn't be there for all of that. So
Stigma.
Yeah. Increased stigma. I think everyone in the room was like, I'm sorry, what?
And what he said was maybe increasing stigma is not a bad thing for suicide because if there is a stigma, people are less likely to engage in suicidal behaviors. And there was sort of this energy shift in the room.
Oh, I missed this, Shizzle?
Yeah.
Sure did.
So why didn't you get snarky? Why didn't you go, "Boo, Langford"?
I was trying to be able to come back next year.
Welcome to the adult tag.
Oh, I would have
Social
invited
Work
you back.
Podcast.
Like, I think it's okay. I think it's okay to have energetic disagreement. I mean, I don't want you to stab him or anything, but you know what I'm
Then
saying?
he'd
Like,
study me.
what?
He would because he studies mass shootings and killings.
Oh, that's so true. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's okay to say, I really am troubled by this because if you increase the stigma to prevent that death, there are all these attempt survivors who you increase all sorts of pain and risk for them. Mm-hmm. And that there's a trade-off here that I'm not really comfortable with him recommending. Like, that's really okay to say.
I only had 140 characters.
Oh, I should have gone after him and be like, girlfriend.
At what point did you decide, I'm not going to comment on this comment, I'm merely going to put it out there?
I did a lot of that, but I tweeted stuff that I thought was interesting or that I agreed with, and I tried to stay away from the stuff that I disagreed with, because I can be a little fiery sometimes, and I didn't want to do that. But
Wow.
next time...
Because, like, Twitter and social media is actually known for, like, encouraging snarkiness, and you guys are saying, like, that if it's really visible, you're actually modulating yourself more.
The thing about him also, I walked in and I got there late, and I heard commit, and I was irritated the moment I walked in with this man.
Use of the word in terms of commit suicide.
Commit suicide.
Right.
We're at a suicide conference.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the education on the language that we use? Because the semantics are incredibly important, and this guy was just...
Well, he's trying to increase the stigma.
I guess.
If you're trying to, you'd want to say commit suicide rather than
Commit would be
die
the
by
correct
suicide.
word.
Exactly. Okay.
But I think controversy is a form of engagement, and you build a listenership or you get people to weigh in. Like, I feel like Dr. Langford is a peer-reviewed academician who is writing books. Like, it's okay for his ideas to be disagreed with fire. I mean, I think it's okay. I mean, he isn't like a delicate flower.
Now, I'm going to stop for a moment and clarify Dez's comment about the use of the word commit. Most suicide prevention folks would like the general public to stop saying that someone committed suicide. People commit murder. People die by suicide. But should live tweeting focus on the intended content of the presentation, like Langford was there to talk about suicide bombers? Or should it include this legitimate and important issue of language? And of course, we're talking about the language of suicide prevention as an example, but it could be any language issue that's germane to your specialty. So one of the things that's happened here is that Langford said a couple of things that were controversial, but they weren't tweeted as controversies, which begs the question, What did you see your roles as social media folks here at the conference?
Like sometimes it was about documentation. It was about distribution of really important ideas to people who are stakeholders, and we're just a small little group. So it's an idea of like a way to say, this is what's happening here that's about this issue that is in your community, and we would love for you to know the things we know. So some of it's about spreading knowledge, letting people know our conference is great. There were all these great pictures. Right?
So one of the things that I'm taking out of what you're saying is that every discipline, every sort of field of knowledge probably suffers from having blinders on. Like for pediatric oncology, people are like, oh yeah, I'm sure everybody knows that pretty much most kids that get cancer survive and live into old age. And really the issues are about like, when they get into childbearing years, they can't because of treatment. Like everybody knows that.
I don't know that.
I don't know that. Yeah.
Exactly. Nobody knows that, right? So if you're a pediatric oncologist, like that is the kind of information, the basic, like the ground level basic information that would be important to tweet out. And if you're trying to change perceptions, if you're trying to address stigma, if you're trying to expand the message beyond the professional community, maybe those are the important things to tweet. It's great that Tony, who didn't know anything about it, came in and said, whoa, here is the message. Let's just get it out there. What do you guys think about that?
If you're asking the question, what's important to share,
then
I'm going to say that it really depends. And so the reason to organize a social media team with people with diverse backgrounds and point of views and skills is that then suddenly you are getting a really big audience, a lot of different kinds of tailored messaging and meeting a lot of different needs. And I think meeting more needs is better than finding the one need and tweeting the one right thing.
After the conference, Tony checked the stats, and April was right. There was a big audience. 8 folks did the majority of tweeting for a conference of 1,000 people. And those tweets reached 347,000 people and over 7 million timeline impressions. Now those numbers and this issue of what you tweet and why really begs the question. If live tweeting expands the reach of the conference, what happens when no one shows up to a presentation? If it isn't tweeted, does it count? I mean, it's a conference cliche to present to an empty room, but what if that happens because everyone, including the social media team, is attending one session? Well, that's what happened at AAS 14, when everyone, myself included, attended a panel discussion that introduced the Lived Experience Division.
So people with lived experience of suicidal thoughts and feelings haven't been invited to the table in mental health academic or clinical circles. They just really haven't. And so AAS historically invites them to the table and gives them a division, and Desiree Stage is a part of that. And Kara-Anna was a huge, long-term, for many years, part of driving that.
I'm Kara-Anna. I'm editor of AttemptSurvivors.com. We had 4 fantastic people do a panel today and talk about their stories, their different projects, and meanwhile it was a standing room only room with lots of energy, and apparently history was being made, and people grasped that and tweeted it and tweeted photos, and everybody was in tears, including Doc Foreman, which was pretty awesome. So
this is so embarrassing because now you put that on the podcast.
Yes.
Well, I already tweeted about it. So.
Oh, damn.
I think all of us tweeted that we were in.
Yeah, I think everyone was sobbing. Everyone was
Yeah.
sobbing.
Yeah.
Every social media tweeter in the building ended up in Kara-Anna's panel and Desiree Stage's panel. Every one of us, because it was so compelling. That was a story we all wanted to tell, and it was so emotional, and we all connected with it. And it was an overwhelming amount of content and engagement right at that, which I think mirrored how we felt, which was so triumphant and so connected to these people. Like I was suddenly, it wasn't, oh, you're this crazy person in the shambles who had this unmentionable thing that you feel that we can't talk about because you're dirty or bad. Suddenly it was, I live with this, I'm a responsible, worthwhile person that you'd want to listen to, that you would look up to, and you can understand where I'm coming from. And it was like magic.
It was like magic. We were sitting at the front of the room, all of the panelists, and we would turn around every few minutes, and then it was packed and packed and packed, and we were all shaking. We're like, what are we going to do? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then there were just the pictures of people standing. She's crying again.
It was really... I mean, come on.
It was very powerful.
You know, there are a lot of people who talk about eliminating stigma, but when it happens, nobody's mentioning that word anymore.
Yeah.
And then I just saw it happen in a big room, in an important place.
You hear the emotion in April's voice? This is what we can't tweet out. It's not a criticism of Twitter, it's just a fact. We make up for it with evocative photos, emoji, heartfelt quotes. But hearing the emotion in Doc Foreman's voice moves me in a way that Twitter never will. Which isn't to say there isn't value in live tweeting a conference.
It's invaluable. That's what I've learned.
That's Dr. William Schmitz, Bill to his friends, a self-proclaimed technophobe and at the time of the interview, the president of the American Association of Suicidology.
This is how we grow as a field. It's got to happen, because without it, we continue to talk to ourselves. And that doesn't spread education, it doesn't save lives, and we aren't doing enough. We have great research, great data, great treatments, great programs that we keep in a vault and say, these things are so great, people will pound on the door to come get them. And no one knows there's a door here. You know, whether it's the attempt survivors, whether it's survivors, whether it's the social media universe or Twitterverse, we have got to recognize that the only way people will come to us is if they know who we are. And we've got really great life-saving stuff. Please come to us. We are going to do our best to get that message out broader.
So what does it take to get the message out broader? You'll hear from the social media team what they thought made a difference in live tweeting, and then I'm going to share some additional recommendations that I've seen in the year since I recorded this interview. And these recommendations have come from HubSpot.com, Prof Hacker, and the SPSM chat folks whom you've been hearing from today. The links to all of those are going to be on the Social Work Podcast website. Before the event sponsors should figure out the official hashtag. Otherwise, everyone's going to make up their own. And since hashtags are the main way to quickly find relevant tweets, there's a huge difference between, say, CSWE 2015 and CSWE 15. And it goes without saying, the hashtag should be short. Number 2, have a social media team. These are the folks whose main purpose it is to tweet the events. They need to know what the hashtags are, which sessions to attend, how to get internet access in the basement of the conference center, which can be an expensive nightmare, among other things. Somebody should be in charge of the social media team, just like any other team. If you can get an IT person like Tony and a content expert and all-around mischief maker like April to co-chair, you got yourself a great social media team leadership. Number 3, figure out who's going to be tweeting and retweeting from the organization's official account. If I were at a conference sponsored by the National Association of Social Workers and I saw that NASW was retweeting and replying to my tweets, I'd be pretty stoked. Yeah, I mean, I know that the person in charge of the NASW Twitter account might be 20 years old, but the important thing is that by having my tweets retweeted, NASW is given my tweet the stamp of approval. 4, schedule important tweets and posts in advance. If you want to remind people to attend a book signing Friday at noon, there's no reason to wait until Friday at 11:30 to manually send it out. You're going to be busy and you're going to forget to tweet it. I like to use Hootsuite. I log in, schedule my tweets over several days, and if I'm organizing a meetup, I can schedule a tweet per day about the meetup and use the replies to identify more folks who are going to be joining me. Number 5, find someone or some organization that has a huge Twitter following and have them tweet a PSA about your conference with the dates and the official hashtag. Imagine Oprah tweeting to her 27 million followers, quote, "I'm going to be following hashtag AAS15 this year to learn how to save lives. You should too." Number 6, create image templates. These are photos or graphics that you can add text to. Share them with your social media team. Remember that 2013 study of 400,000 tweets? Number 7, Use an analytic tool to figure out the impact of your social media presence. Now, typically, these are commercial sites like hashtracking.com. You have to pay for them. They require you to register the hashtag or hashtags in advance. And what they do is they track the number of tweets, who tweets, how many retweets, and the reach of the tweets. And this is where it gets interesting. As I mentioned earlier, there were about 1,000 people at the 2014 Suicidology Conference, but the tweets were seen by almost 350,000 people. And that's a huge reach. Now, the link to the AAS 2014 hash tracking report can be found on the Social Work Podcast website. Number 8. Last, but should probably be first on your list, is to get buy-in from the event sponsors. That thing you heard Bill Schmidt say about how the organization had to do it?
This is how we grow as a field. It's got to happen.
That's exactly the kind of thing you want to hear from the leadership. But even if somebody says it, getting everything you need from them isn't going to be easy. Here's Tony, April, Des, and Quentin.
We fought really hard to get the resources to make it happen and to get enough people here and to be able to comp some registrations and to be able to get facilities so that we could charge our devices, and it just goes on and on and on that way. And it was a hard fight for resources because everybody's fighting for resources, and we totally understand that. The things that are on the top of my head is getting comped registrations because this is not an inexpensive event to attend. Getting enough space that we have access to so that we have some place to go to do our curation and charge our devices and some place to hang our hats. And this is we're in a conference hotel right now.
We're in the President's Suite right now.
Right. We're in the President's Suite of a conference hotel.
That's right.
So this is not inexpensive real estate. So they're giving this to us because, you heard my approach. I've sort of extorted them into it and put a lot of pressure on them, and they thankfully agreed. They sort of said, "Oh, okay, well you do give a crap, so okay, we'll give it a try."
So Quentin,
hashtag extortion.
Right.
it's 14 hashtag extortion. So Quentin, Desiree, what do you think that you needed to do your job well? Because we've been discovering needs along the way. I know that I wanted you guys to have seats up front so you could hear and see. I needed you guys to have a place to charge things, and I wanted registration, and I wanted it to be seen as valuable or a prestigious position. What else do you need?
Seat up front was good. Could do it other places, but seat up front was definitely really helpful. Getting onto Wi-Fi. That was probably the absolute...
Oh my God. That was so hard to get.
Yeah. Wi-Fi was tough.
Most conferences I've been to are down in the depths of some conference center where you don't get an internet signal, so you can't tweet. And then you get on the internet, it's $15 a day, and you already spent $400 registering for the conference.
And you're like, and I'm doing a media job for me. Could you just negotiate some Wi-Fi passes as part of, since you're paying the conference to have all your people here and you're paying the hotel? So can't they just negotiate in some Wi-Fi connections?
So Wi-Fi, you guys negotiated Wi-Fi, and
Yeah.
that was really helpful.
The conference organizers had no idea how important that is.
Because also with
they do
Wi-Fi,
now.
you
They do
can
now.
jump on my laptop and tweet from there, which is so much better than tweeting from my phone.
Yeah.
And then other people saw the social media team like, oh, they have internet access. Oh, they get to sit up front. Oh, they get to talk to people, which anyone could sort of, I think, arrange.
During the event. Set up displays at registration in the lobby that randomly display recent conference tweets. I like visibletweets.com. It's a visualization tool that's designed to display Twitter messages in public spaces. The animations are very turn of the century, but totally effective. Number 2, use the event hashtag in every tweet. Now you can automate this by signing into websites like tchat.io. And what that means is that you can write your tweet on those websites and it automatically includes the hashtag at the end, so you don't have to write it in. Or you can tweet directly from some of the conference apps that have started to build that functionality in. Number 3, if you're a presenter and you're on Twitter or Instagram, include your Twitter or Instagram handles on your first and last slides and handouts, and let your audience know if they can or cannot tweet out your stuff or post photos of your slides. Number 4, if you're live tweeting, tweet responsibly. If the presenter said, please don't tweet this or take pictures, then don't. If the presenter gave explicit or tacit permission, then give them credit in your posts. Use their Twitter handles. If they don't have Twitter handles, use their last name. An easy format is to put the person's name first, followed by a colon, followed by the quote, followed by the conference hashtag, and then the session hashtag. Number 5, interact with folks who retweet or comment. Reply, follow them, engage. Remember, social media is social. Number 6, take pictures of folks attending the conference. Now, this isn't 21st century selfie narcissism. I mean, you remember the Yalta Conference, February 1945, right? The one where Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin met to talk about post-World War II Reconstruction? No, of course you don't. But you remember the photo of Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin sitting next to each other, and that happened at the Yalta Conference. Number 7, listen for the sound bites. The first person to tweet a hot quote will get the most retweets. Take it a step further by adding the quote to your image templates. Tweets with images tend to get more retweets. Number 8, archive your tweets. And this comes directly from @DocForeman, who's a pioneer in archiving tweets. If you've tweeted with a session hashtag, archive the session using Storify. Storify enables you to search by hashtag across several social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, etc. And it pulls up all the tweets, photos, and posts associated with that hashtag. And you can add all the content to your story, or you can select key tweets and photos, and then you can add narrative to the content. And once you're done, you can share the archive to your network and alert everyone who's been quoted in your story. @DocForeman has a great tutorial on using Storify at spsmchat.com. Now, after the event, host a tweet chat or live Google Hangout to debrief the event. Look at those analytics you set up before the event. Find out which tweets were most widely retweeted. Who was your most prolific tweeter? Who had the biggest reach? Did picture tweets rule the day? Are Ben Franklin and the researchers who did that 2013 study right? Or are they wrong? Number 3, do one last final archive of the social media with Storify. Number 4, meet with the conference organizers, present them with the archived tweets, the analytics, and the recommendations for what worked and what didn't work. Ride that wave of excitement and get some buy-in for next year's conference before everyone goes back to their everyday daily lives. Thank you for being on the podcast. Thanks for talking about live tweeting, the American Association of Suicidology Conference 2014. And for everybody listening, the information is going to be on the Social Work Podcast website for how to contact folks if you are interested in doing the same thing. All right, say bye, y'all.
Bye!
I'm Jonathan Singer, and thanks for being with me today for another episode of the Social Work Podcast. If you missed an episode or have suggestions for future episodes, please visit socialworkpodcast.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit our online store at cafepress.com/swpodcast. To all the social workers out there, keep up the good work. We'll see you next time at the Social Work Podcast.